Good afternoon, everyone. I'd say a round of applause needs to go for everyone that's here, because I would always say that this is the most difficult session of any event that happens, because it's the post-lunch session. So, hats off to all of you. So please give a round of applause to all of yourself, please. I think you guys really need to wake up, and it's been a very interesting day. I'll just introduce myself. I'll introduce my company, what we've been doing very quietly for a very prolonged period of time. I represent Eren Group. We are a very small conglomerate which has been operating since the early 90s to promote renewable energy. We have two concepts of energy. One is make clean energy. The other concept is don't use energy. It's a very simple front to it. We've heard since morning that, generating clean energy has been a fantastic initiative in the country. I myself have been a part of it for close to 5 to 6 years. A good point that Mr. Bhatia touched upon was on storage. And storage is something we've been looking at for a very long period of time. And we saw the fact that renewable does not exist as an ecosystem without having storage. You have solar in the day, you have wind in the night, and it isn't very consistent. So that's where conventional energy sources like coal has always had an upper hand. So we did develop renewable assets for a prolonged period of time. It's not very well heard in the news, but we sold off our renewable assets to a larger oil company. That's a very good deal for us. And today where we really focus on is on energy storage. And I would say when I started my career and I looked at energy storage, it was a fantastic venture. We looked at it as solar would make energy during the day. Some of it would be stored in batteries. And in the night, we would use wind. And I still remember looking at the data sheet of the storage solution we had. It was 240 feet containers that would store somewhere close to about 1.5 megawatt hour of power. And when you did the math, it did not make sense for anything. I mean, we all laughed at it. We said someday, maybe a few decades from now, this might really make sense. Today, we sit at a capacity of about 3.5 megawatt hour of energy that's storable in a 20 feet container, which is, when you look at it in terms of scale, very, very, very small. And you can discharge maybe the entire capacity in an hour. And if you want to be a bit more sustainable, maybe half the capacity in an hour. Our narrative towards energy is very, very straightforward. We understand the concept of rupees per kilowatt hour. We all speak about energy as electricity. We all think of it as, when we talk about energy, we're all thinking of electricity. I would say take a step back and look at how else you consume energy. Sir touched upon a very interesting topic of the duck curve. And I wish I had brought the duck curve along with me. I would have drawn it here if I had a whiteboard. I'm a technical person, so I tend to draw a bit. But the whole concept of it is how you consume electricity. Now, if you break that part down, okay, you will notice that we consume electricity, and we use this electricity to create other forms of energy as well. And cooling happens to be a large aspect of it. There is a plan called as a National Cooling Action Plan, which states that today only about 10% of Indian homes use air conditioning, which will become about 20% by 2030 approximately. Don't quote me on these numbers, but they're very close, I presume. What really happens is we consume a lot of this energy in different forms. So the narrative we bring about is store energy in the form that you need it. You need socket loads, you want to charge your EVs, you want to power up your homes, you want to power up data centers. You use socket loads of electricity from lithium-ion batteries. It's a very proven tech. It's been around for ages. Something people don't really talk about is the amount of energy we consume for cooling. Typical commercial premises, this building in case as well, almost 40 to 45% of its energy consumption is for cooling. No one would have imagined that, but yeah, we're all sitting very comfortably. None of us are sweating. I was also dozing off a bit on the stage because it's very comfortable here. We consume 45% of that energy for cooling. And that's why we say if you want to store energy, store it in the form that you need it in. We have a solution called ice thermal storage. It's very old technologies. It's been around since the 80s, I would say. It's a patented tech. There are open market tech. But the fact is, it's an accessory to the grid that makes it far more sustainable and far more usable. So when you bring about a coupling of energy storage solutions, you become a far more robust grid. You can't look at just one method of energy storage or one method of energy generation and one method of energy consumption. We all look at it in different aspects of it. Another point I really wanted to touch about is how storage is going to play a very, very, very critical role moving ahead. Today, we've got clients who came to us, let's say, about 3 years back and said, I'm willing to do a one-day cycle, which means I will charge up my batteries with the day peak of power curtailment, as Sir mentioned. I will charge up my batteries, and towards my peak hours, which is the 6 to 10 bracket, I will start discharging my batteries. It turns out to be a very expensive equation. I'll be honest about it. And someone had a stroke of genius and said, fair enough, you have the asset, it's capable of doing maybe dual cycling a day. Let's do one thing, let's store solar in the day, and at the night time when the grids are not very congested, there might be wind power available at a very cheap price. Let's store it up, and maybe discharge it for the morning peak that is coming through. Right then and there, you make the cost of energy storage half. This is just a very basic example. There is no rocket science to it. People are adopting it. Commercial entities are adopting it. The government is promoting it. The fact is, how much of us really speak about how we consume energy? It's a very straight narrative. So I'm going to keep my speech very short. What I'd just like to bring to the table is that energy storage is going to be a very critical part of how the nation develops. Even when we speak about EVs, just food for thought, we have a sister concern company that deals with EVs. The narrative we say is, today we all come home at about 6, 7 in the evening. We settle down in our homes. We switch on air conditioners. We are actually the creators of the peak load demand. The 6 to 10 bracket, where the government now has introduced that everyone about 10 kilowatt of connected load will have time of day tariff, which is to move this peak. So 6 to 10 is a duration where we all consume and create a peak of energy. Now when bring in EVs into this segment, 7 o'clock I will park my car in the parking lot, plug in my car for charging, add on to this particular required load of charging, and then say electricity cost is very expensive. The fact of the matter is we need to learn to shift this curve. It is not that it is very difficult, it is purely about energy management. And the future of the grid is going to be a very grid interactive and system interactive system where you don't look at storage as something the government does or something that the DISCOM does. It's going to be every building, every conglomerate, every transformer junction is going to have storage, which is going to make it possible to cater to these peaks and troughs. Thank you so much. That's all from my end.